I would just like to begin with a prayer, if you will, and it is the Thea Bowman's canonization prayer, and then I will talk about, Father David, what I'd like to do is do a history of the cause coming into effect, then give the update and where we're going in the future, okay?
That would be really helpful because we're at different places in terms of what we know. Some it'll be an introduction to as well.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So let us pray. Ever-loving God, who by your infinite goodness inflamed the heart of your servant and religious Sister Thea Bowman with an ardent love for you and the people of God, a love expressed through her indomitable spirit, deep and abiding faith, dedicated teaching, exuberant singing, and unwavering witnessing of the joy of the gospel. Her prophetic witness continues to inspire us to share the good news with those whom we encounter, most especially the poor, oppressed, and marginalized. May Sister Thea's life and legacy compel us to walk together, to pray together, and to remain together as missionary disciples, ushering in the new evangelization of the church we love. Gracious God, imbue us with the grace and perseverance that you gave your servant, Sister Thea. For in turbulent times of racial injustice, she sought equity, peace, and reconciliation. In times of ignorance and intolerance, she brought wisdom, awareness, unity, and charity. In times of pain, sickness, and suffering, she taught us how to live fully until called home to the land of promise. If it be your will, O God, glorify our beloved Sister Thea by granting the favor I now request through her intercession. I ask that you just take a moment to make your request known through her intercession in silence. So that all may know of her goodness and holiness and may imitate her love for you and your church. We ask this through your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Let the church say,
Amen.
Well, thank you, Father David, and beloved people of St. Benedict the African for hosting me and allowing me to be here with you this afternoon. Just a little background about Sister Thea. Sister Thea, as you know, was a Franciscan sister of perpetual adoration. She became Catholic at the age of 9 by attending Holy Child Jesus Catholic School in Canton, Mississippi. She went on at the age of 15 to enter the convent to go to the high school program. During that time, a lot of people didn't know that Sister Thea developed tuberculosis and was hospitalized for 7 months prior to her being able to make first vows. So she started with one class and she was brought back a year because of that. She went on to graduate, getting her degree at the Viterbo. What sisters had to do then, they had to go in the summertime to finish their degrees. And as soon as they got professed, they were out there teaching already. And so they were getting degreed in the summer while they were teaching. Her first assignment was at Blessed Sacrament School in La Crosse, Wisconsin, all white school. And it's crazy because a lot of the students, they loved her. And when parent-student conferences would come, the kids never said that Sister Thea was Black. And so they said, oh, you're Sister Thea we've been hearing so many great things about. She went on to get her master's degree and her doctorate in English and linguistics. She focused her master's degree on William Faulkner, a Southern writer, and her doctorate was on the defense of St. Sir Thomas More on the means of forgiveness, how to forgive. She went on after that. She became known, went to teach at Viterbo in La Crosse as a university professor, spent many years there, became chair of the department. And finally, after all those years, she was able to go home to teach first in her grade school of her home parish, Holy Child in Canton, and then to teach in a high school. She always said she found high school teaching very challenging. And then after that, she finished her doctorate. And after she finished her doctorate, she went, eventually in 1978, came to Canton to take care of her elderly parents and be over the Office for Cultural Evangelization and Awareness in the Diocese of Jackson. Also during those years when she was back in Canton, she helped found the Institute for Black Catholic Studies. It was founded in 1980, but she came in 1982 to start teaching. 1984, her parents were diagnosed with illnesses and ended up dying in 1984. She also in 1984 was diagnosed with breast cancer, which eventually metastasized. It was in 1984 that I first met her at the Joint Conference of Black priests, sisters, seminarians, deacons, and their wives, and other religious women. And then during those 6 years, I was her student at Xavier. And as we all know, she spoke to the bishops in 1989, in June of 1989. And in March 30 of 1990, she passed. So that's a really quick synopsis of her life. And there's a lot more. If you'd like to know more, and I'm going to unshamedly talk about my book, buy the book. It's really good, and it just won 2 awards. So God bless me for that. So the cause. It should be known that as soon as she died, even at her funeral, he was just Bishop of Cleveland. He wasn't Archbishop yet, but James Patterson Like started her cause at her funeral. Said that we need to start talking about getting Sister Thea canonized. And what happened was he eventually became Archbishop of Atlanta, and 6 years after her passing, in 1996, they held the first meeting to talk about her cause. And it was members of her religious community, some African-American leaders, and I'll just name one in particular besides Archbishop Like. Father Cyprian Davis was on that committee. And Father Cyprian Davis, after they had 3 meetings, and he urged that the committee disband and wait. He thought that it was too soon after her death to move her cause for canonization. And so during that time from 1996 until 2018, there was speculation and you would hear things, rumors, is it gonna happen now? So finally, I called the sisters president of their community, Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. They said that they had voted in chapter not to pay the money. Theo wouldn't want them to pay the money that it costs to get canonized. So they were gonna hold off on it and not, they says if the people of God, meaning predominantly African-American Catholics, wanted to see her or canonized, that they would need to come to the forefront. And when you don't have one specific group that is sponsoring a cause of canonization, it's almost impossible. It has to be a religious order or a diocese, just a group of people or devout Catholics wanting to do it. It's very rare that that would happen. So when Bishop Kopass became the Bishop of Jackson, he had already been hearing prior to coming that he had a saint who died in his diocese, meaning Thea Bowman. And so he chose to, on faith, it's a diocese that is very small, it's a missionary diocese, but he knew of her holiness. And so he asked me in January of 2018 to begin doing research on Sister Thea Bowman and to make a petition to him on behalf of the people of God that she had heroic virtues. It coincided with me just completing writing her book, where I had done a year's worth of research on her life. So it was actually the manuscript of my book was the research. And so I presented that to him and wrote a defense why I felt that the people of God felt that she was worthy of holiness through heroic virtues. And so he began to open up the cause. Initially, in June of 2018 was the due date. We had to have all of it's called a libidus, which is called a little biography that had to be sent to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. What they asked when a diocese opened up a cause, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops asked that the bishop first the ordinary does a collegial presentation to the bishops in the region. If they agree, then it moves to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. So it was submitted in early May for the June 2018 meeting, and they stopped it because they knew that the preparation of the Pastoral on Racism, Open Wide Our Hearts was being promulgated, and they wanted to bring them simultaneously together at the November meeting. So it was held off to November of 2018. So November 18, 2018 was the opening of the diocesan investigation. November the 14th was when the bishops unanimously voted at their meeting to move her cause for canonization. So November of 2018, part of my responsibilities was to present to the bishop. He had to form a canonical canonization tribunal. So it has on there a notary, the person who is considered the bishop's delegate, who will be the one doing all the investigations, the interviews, and it had to have a canon lawyer. So those three people, including the bishop, formed the tribunal. Myself, I am a promoter or a diocesan liaison for the cause. So I am not a sworn member of the councils of the tribunal, so I don't have to make any official decisions. Plus, they need someone, they have to be objective while I can be subjective. I can really promote her good virtues and promote her holiness. So what has happened was my job was to form the team of, we got theologians and historians, and I also submitted the name of the bishop's delegate to do the interviews. So we have a quite impressive team of theologians and historians. Their names cannot be released now because they're working in secrecy. So all the works that they're doing is done with a seal of secrecy and confidentiality as they do the interviews. Where we are now in our whole cause is that the process is still going. We had hoped to have been done by this past spring, but due to COVID-19, as soon as it hit in March, they were halfway through. I can say this is that there are 90 people that are still living that knew Sister Thea Bowman very intimately. There are certainly more people who knew her, but we chose 90 people to be interviewed. And I want to say this, not all accepted. Some said no, they withdrew their names from being a part of the, for whatever reasons. They may have felt they didn't know enough, or they didn't think that they would add to anything, so they took their names out. But they have finished 45 interviews, and so they have, less than 40 to do. So they're in the midst of that. Everything is on hold on that part. The only thing that is happening now with her cause would be that the promotion that I'm doing by speaking about her, by promoting, we have brochures, there are holy cards that are there. So if anybody wants these, you can write to the diocese and they will ship them to you. Usually we ask that you do it as groups. So if you want, like for your parish, brochures and holy cards, you can do that. We also need financial support. So on our website, which is www.sisterspelledout.theabowman.com, you can now put up your prayer intentions for you, that those prayers that will be coming in from the website will be sent to the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration that perpetually pray before the Blessed Sacrament. They now have a Thea basket before the Blessed Sacrament, which your prayers will go into, and I do a Mass every 30th day of the month. I get copies of those prayers as well, and we have your intentions prayed for at a special Mass on the 30th. Why the 30th? That's the day that she died in March. So every 30th of the month, we have a special Mass. You can also, on our website, if you have any testimony about the power of her after her death, especially after her death, that you have felt through your prayer or some personal favor you received, we ask that you submit that so we can share testimonies on our e-newsletter. We have an e-newsletter, and you can subscribe to that. It's quarterly, and you can subscribe on the website for that as well. So we have the testimonials, the prayers that you can have. We're eventually going to have lapel pins, t-shirts, and other paraphernalia to witness to the holiness of this African-American religious sister and woman of God. So those are some of the things that we want you to be aware of. Finally, we hope, we're trying to project out when we could send the positio, which is the dossier or the dissertation that goes to the Congregation of Catholic, Congregation of the Causes of Saints. When they receive that dossier, they will spend time mulling over it, scrutinizing it, and they will come to a decision if she really lived a virtuous and holy life, and then they will make a recommendation to the Pope, and like he did a few years ago, he will then declare her venerable. And so that's where we are. We are hopefully by the fall of 2021, we can send the positio, it'll be completed, and can send it over to the Vatican, to the Congregation of the Causes of Saints. In that positio is her spiritual biography, testimony letters, as well as the research done by the historians and theologians. So that will be there as we petition the Vatican that she be declared a venerable. I think, David, I've shared really fast a lot of the stuff because I wanted to leave more time for your questions.
Father, I have a question. How are you, Brother
Hi,
Father?
Sister Catherine. Sister
Yes.
Catherine. Okay.
I have this size picture of her. How can I get one the size yes?
Like that size. That's beautiful. Well, you know, you can, that was issued by the National Black Catholic Congress. And what I love about what they did, they never ever took rights to it, you know, so anybody can have that reprinted. How I got the big size was that the Archdiocese of New Orleans here decided to take it upon themselves to take the video and have it done. And so I purchased that from them. In fact, they have all 6 of them in that size.
Mm-hmm.
So I only thing I can say is either you can do it yourself, or you can write the Archdiocese of New Orleans and pay for the cost of it and shipping. They make and sell it that way to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
Father Nutt, this is Claire.
Hey, Claire, how you doing?
Okay, I wanted to ask if Sister Thea is declared venerable, will they be looking at whether she's had miracles also?
Very good question. I can share this with you that a tribunal has already been opened. See, Thea in life was an overachiever. I wish she would just, you know, take her time and go with the steps. We haven't even submitted her positio. And our postulator, by the way, the postulator we have is Dr. Andrea Ambrosi, who is the postulator in Rome for Father Augustus Toten, as well as for Mother Henriette de Lille. So he has 3 of our African-American saints' causes, and he's very good. To answer your question, there's already been a reported miracle in the Diocese of Jackson. So they've come and already opened up a tribunal to begin investigating, going over the medical records. So Thea actually have one that has already started. I think they may have just did the initial investigation. Again, the tribunal of the diocese is dealing with that. I just happen to know the person that had the miracle, so that's why I'm privy to it happening. Mm-hmm. And it's good that you know that. I want people to know that someone has already claimed a miracle, so that you all, and by the way, we cannot even use the word miracle. Only the Vatican can declare it. We know that God acted mightily in Thea's name. That's what I like to say. Mm-hmm. So that would mean that if a miracle is approved, that would bring her to the rank of or status of blessed. And as you know, all beatifications now are done in the home diocese. So whenever Sister Thea would be beatified, it will be in Jackson, Mississippi.
Father, this is Deacon Kurt. You mentioned that all this is predicated on funding.
Yeah.
I wish we had the opportunity for you to come by our parish and possibly talk about Thea Bowman. But what can I do as a deacon? I would like to get a bunch of material to probably put in a bulletin or maybe have some time to speak to the church.
Yeah, write to the Diocese of Jackson. You can check on our website, and it has everything there. I don't know if you want, I would just say if you have internet capacity, I would just go on the website. Everything is there. And also, we have distinguished personal favors received as opposed to healings, because healings have to go to a different tribunal. If you were medically healed and cured of something, then you have to send that directly to the chancellor of the diocese. But to answer your question, if you would like to promote her cause, materials, or I have a few in my possession, but I didn't get a chance to get to my office in Jackson to get more, so I'm limited. So if you want a lot, the diocese there is open and they can send you material you're requesting.
Thank you.
People want to know how much. I'm going to tell you, we need to get we feel that if we are on the same track as Augustus Toten, it's going to take at least 4 years to go through this period to get her to venerable. And that would mean they need $1 million within 4 years. That's what the bishop is saying he needs. And by the way, I've moved out of the fundraising. The diocese feel they have to get a full-time major firm to do the fundraising, and that's what they're going to do. Because as one man who's got many jobs, I cannot raise millions of dollars for this. So I'm purely doing talks and promoting her cause. And I run the e-newsletter, and we're also overseeing the website.
Father, I'd like to ask another question, please. I've probably shared with you at some point in time that back in 2013, the then active St. Albee Christian Book Club, we reviewed her book, Thea's Song.
You're right.
And that was a wonderful experience because most of us didn't know a lot about Thea.
Right.
I do know we were scheduled at St. Catherine Drexel to get maybe a book signing, but of course the revival, the event did not come because of the pandemic. Have you considered doing a Zoom or some other virtual format of a book review with the book that you have published that gives us more information on her later life even?
And that would be great. You know, I only have to be invited. So if like Father David did today, and he's doing this whole week kind of focusing on Thea, get your pastor and your parish to decide you want to have that type of Zoom meeting, then fine, we can talk about a book review, how to purchase it. I would just say people can go on Amazon. It's a little bit cheaper there if you want to get the book. And about Sisters Thea's I call it her definitive biography, Thea's Song. It's very good. It's loaded with footnotes. So what the postulator is so pleased with is that he's got a full, detailed, footnoted, definitive biography. My biography was meant to be more of a popular biography, so you can just read it in a few days or a week, but it is also footnoted. And the difference is that, and the authors of Thea's Song would even agree to this, that I emphasize the importance of her being an African-American woman. So everything about her in my book is really focused on showing her from that perspective as an African-American woman, how the culture influenced her life and her faith and many of the sermons she preached.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I got a question or something I want to present. I'm gonna ask it as if I'm speaking to myself in third person. Maurice, did Thea knew that people were considering her as a saint while she was still alive? And Father David Jones could very well answer that because of her coat situation. Was she over at Quigley South? Is that where she was speaking? Yeah, Father David, why don't you just tell the story? And I got another one about that.
This was one of the last times that Thea was in Chicago for a public engagement. She was preaching, and the event was held over on 79th and Western at the former Quigley South. And I was at the back of the chapel. You know, that chapel seats about 1,500 people. Yeah. And she was in a wheelchair by this time. They were rolling her in. And so they were getting ready for the procession. And she enters the door, and I'm standing right at the door. And she just kind of flings her coat, and she says, "Hold my coat." And I reacted to, you know, the norm is good afternoon or good evening or, you know, hello. So I said to her, I said, "Sister Thea, I will be happy to hang your coat up for you." And then the thing that I remember is the grasp. She grabbed my hand, and it was just such a strong grasp that you don't expect from a person in a wheelchair who is suffering with whatever they're going through. So it kind of shocked me, but it got my attention. And she said, having my attention, she said, "Boy, hold my coat. Do not put my coat down. These people have decided I'm a saint. They're stealing everything. Do not put my coat down. It's a Chicago. Put my coat down."
All right now.
That's true. Yeah, and people, that happened a lot. You know, I know this woman stole a woman who stole her umbrella from her. You know, so I mean, they were claiming relics before she died. Anything that you touch, and so one of the things in my story is that Sister Francesca Thompson, which we all know, Franciscan sister, very close friend of Thea's, went to see her while she was dying, and she had just come home from a heavy bout of chemotherapy. And so as she was sitting there, I guess they were sitting at the kitchen table, plaits from her hair started falling out on the ground, on the floor of the kitchen. And so Sister Francesca got down on her hands and knees and got a baggie and started collecting her plaits. And she says, "Girl, what you doing down there?" She says, "Honey, these are first-class relics, and I'm getting them now." And as fate would have it, Sister Francesca got 4 plaits. She kept one. She gave one to Dort. She sent one to Archbishop Blake, that now is at Holy Cross Church in Dallas, Texas, because the guy who was working with, Howard Brown was working with Archbishop Blake on the cause. Archbishop Blake wanted him to have it, so he gave it to his home parish. And I have the 4th one, so I have one of her plaits. And so just to think that you have, you know, a first-class relic of this woman who we know was a saint. And I would think, you know, and David, you could certainly, Father David could attest to this if, you know, if you will, is just that she had an aura about her. There was just a feel about her that you knew you were in the presence of someone very special. You know? So
absolutely, I would agree. It was, but you just said something that it's important to me, and I think it should be important to us as Catholics. You know, you said that you knew that this was a holy woman, that you were talking about the plaits in essence, and it's, you know, the church doesn't make saints, she merely recognizes them. Mm-hmm. So I think that this is one of those moments where there will be much more awareness from the ground than any research can assist with, because the true evidence of Sister Thea's holiness really is when it comes forward, when you get a chance to talk to her students and the people, the children that she worked with, and the folks who you know that they are authentic when they're telling you how her life made a difference in their life, and it wasn't singular. It wasn't like the favorite teacher story. It was like, wow, this in the presence of this person, I realized these things, and that deepened my faith. And so that you hear those stories. I heard those stories before I met her. I was never one of her students. So I think that's where the true evidence lies.
Yeah, and we always speak of her when we tell the stories, Father David, we speak in the present tense, as if she's still present. Oh, I remember when Thea did this, or that and we speak of her as if she's still alive, because she is in our hearts and in our prayers and our emotions we have toward her. One of the things that I think that is so important that is that, and I pray that it's happening with our other 5 candidates for canonization. And I want to say this very unashamedly, unapologetically, that I support all of our Black candidates. I just happen to be, because I knew her, but they're all very, very important. From what I also, I run her Facebook page, and, we're getting people from literally all over the world. I received just last night a record or email from instant message from a guy in Australia who has just fallen in love with Sister Thea, and he's asking for how he can promote her down under in Australia. And we're hearing it from other countries, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, all over Eastern Europe. People, and I'm just amazed by that, we think of her as our own Mississippi-born Black Catholic sister, but also, like you said, Father David, it's the church that doesn't canonize, it acknowledges the holiness of that person. So, if we are the Universal Catholic Church, well, so be it that the Universal Catholic Church is acknowledging the holiness of Sister Thea. To let you in on a few things, some of you have already seen on our Thea Bowman Facebook page that I negotiated with the Daughters of St. Paul, who released her music, Songs of My People, in 1988. They put them in a 2-album set now that can be downloaded, her spirituals and her Christmas spirituals. So you can get that on iTunes or any other streaming devices. I think iTunes is $19.99 for 25 songs. So, I mean, it's kind of amazing for someone who died and whose causes of canonization to make a musical revival, I mean, from the grave, we're re-releasing her music, so you can get that. Also, there is a off-Broadway play that has been written called Thea. Again, because of COVID-19, it hasn't moved on. I went to the initial reading of the play. It's an Afro-Surrealist play in which the writer, the playwright, considers the day Thea died and has the ancestors coming to meet her. And simultaneously, a young girl actually dies the same day as Thea, and they meet in the clouds. And I won't tell you much about it because I want you to see it, but it incorporates music and spirituals and ring shouts. And so it really is well done. And so hopefully after COVID-19, they made it so the playwright really wants it to be accessible. So before he even takes it to off-Broadway, he wants to travel around to the country with the play, and it's set so that you don't need a lot of settings, props and stuff, that it can be done in the sanctuary of a church, because it's about 6 characters. And so we're hoping that will get off the ground and can be sponsored. And he has on his initial, he wrote of places he wanted to go, and Chicago is certainly on the list. He would like to come to Chicago to do the play. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but I will say this, he was saying that because he wants to make it accessible, that it may be open to, as much as you can get into a certain church, but that it's a love offering that is taken up rather than a ticket price. So, and of course we would say that, please give like you would give if you were going to a play, you know, because they deserve it. It's really good. And lastly, last week I was on the phone with, it's called the New Media Group out of South Bend, Indiana. They, 2 years ago, produced a wonderful documentary on Nicholas Black Elk from the South Dakota, who was his cause, was introduced 2 years before Thea. It was a wonderful hour-long documentary, professionally done, and it aired on ABC. They got it to air nationally. They are now in the works of writing for grants to produce a movie, a documentary on Thea that will hopefully air also nationally on ABC. So that's in the works right now too. So.
Father Nutt, this is Claire again.
Hey, Claire.
I have one thing to say. I remember back in the 80s, I was introduced, I don't know her personally, but about her. And I remember she's a good example of, in our time, of human suffering. Because when she got the cancer, she had to be in pain, but she would go around and do her engagement. She would always have a smile on her face. And it was remarkable, the charisma that God gave her near the end, but she would try to make as many assignments as she was given, even though she had to be in serious pain. And so I think that's a good example of human suffering.
Right, right.
In our time.
She taught us how to deal with suffering and pain. And she kept on, and it hurt her. In my research, one of the letters that by January of 1990, she had to stop all of her speaking engagements. And she wrote a letter saying how it hurt her deeply that she had to cancel just because she just couldn't keep up the stamina of her request to go speak and sing. So, yeah.
Father Maurice, I understand that people would be drawn to and could even see, in some cases, the suffering from the illness. But in your research or your writing or any of the conversations, is the suffering that Sister Thea suffered because of the racism in the church, and also the suffering that she experienced because people discounted her because she was Black, because she was female? Oftentimes people did not realize or appreciate or notice her genius. I mean, this was a woman who had an incredible mind, and that was painful for her. I know that from just a bit of sharing, that a bit of something that she shared with me. But it was that everybody was always happy if Sister Thea came and sang a song, but she was
an intellectual. She was highly intellectual. Yeah.
So to be brilliant and then to have people say, well, just sing us a little song and we'll be happy, that was painful for her.
Right, very much so. And you saw when she was very pleased to share her intellectual astuteness with, like when she wrote, if you pull out the first Lead Me, Guide Me hymnal, and when she really traced the history of Black music, sacred music, you know, that's not just singing a song. It's the intellectual stamina of that writing. I was trying, some have to read it over a few times, she's that deep. When we started in her preaching classes, we didn't start, how to hoop and all that in Black preaching. We studied rhetoric. We studied the rhetorical treatises of Plato and understanding the philosophy behind preaching. So she was very much great, and it hurt her, as Father David mentioned, that people many times did not take her for her ability and her acknowledgement as a strong intellectual degree. She was a Faulkner scholar. I think secular society, Father David, respected her more than our own Black Catholic folks, because she was an annual conference speaker at the William Faulkner Conference on Literature every year at Ole Miss. People missed that she enjoyed that engagement when she was able to be invited in those forums. Also, I want to say about the racism she experienced in the church, not only as a Black woman, as a religious, it's terrible. The racism she experienced as a Black woman in an all-white religious order and the things that were said to her, like when she went to the hospital as a young girl, 15, 16 years old, some of the white nuns said she got TB because she's from Mississippi and Black folks eat dirt down there. Mm. And so, that kind of craziness. Her friend Dart shared with me a reflection that was not even shared with her own religious community when they wrote CSsR, was a meditation she had, a questionnaire that they asked her to reflect on some questions. And she was very honest. She said, I'm living in this convent and at times I'm angry because sisters are disturbed when I sing when I'm walking down the hallway, or if my way of being or acting or relating. And so she just said that she felt that she was stifled and could not be her true self while living in the convent with the sisters. She did not want to be buried with the sisters. She did not want them to pay for her. She didn't want them to pay for her funeral. So through the money she raised, and by the way, in my research, I actually got to see how much money she made when she first started working in 1978 for the diocese. Besides getting a car and some car allowance, Sister Thea made $368 a month. So when you say like, wow, all the things, that's why, when she went out to preach and she never had a fee, is whatever you gave her. But, I hope people were generous because she didn't have much to live on. But she saved her money because she wanted to be buried with her mother and her father and her uncle in Memphis, Tennessee. And another thing about her burial was that when she went to visit Tanzania, Nigeria, every African country, she collected soil from the motherland. And she had that same soil poured into her grave the day that she was buried because she wanted to be buried on African soil. And she says that my sisters just don't understand who I am as a Black woman and why these things, why family relations are important to me. I want to be buried with my family. I want African soil. I want to make sure that she didn't trust that the white nuns would put African soil. She gave it to them. So she gave it to Bishop Ferd Cherie and Sister Eva Loomis and Sister Addie Walker, and they were the ones who poured the dirt into her grave, So it's and also just the racism of the hierarchy, not wanting her to preach and being very uncomfortable with her style. And yet, what I think about that, it's funny that even our Black bishops, when it was time to speak, what does it mean to be Black and Catholic, and talk about our experiences, Black people in the Catholic Church, who did they get? They got a woman with one foot in the grave, dying of cancer, but she could best articulate the meaning of being Black and Catholic. So they put her in the forefront. And the beautiful miracle, most people say her first miracle was to move the hearts of the United States Catholic bishops in her talk. So we're going to be discussing that in detail. But and I want to just say, since I can't be with you on Thursday, Father David, look at the checklist of what she told the bishops to do, and you can see clearly how everything she requested has been dismantled or being dismantled right now by our bishops in the Roman Catholic Church.
We will do that.
Yeah.
Can I say something as far as from the perspective of a Black Christian woman? Reading and Sister Thea's works, some of them, it really appealed to us, and it appealed to most of the women who were in the book club when we discussed it, because to have a Black woman who's Christian and a leader and a religious to say some of the things that she said when she referred to our need to become, to, and our, how did she put it, for us to advance our knowledge of the faith. Often we allow ourselves to come, as she said, couch Christians, couch potato Christians. And then she went on to say how easy it is for the evil one to snatch a piece of candy from a couch potato or dormant Christian than those who continue in the faith and who grow in the faith. And that's so relevant to us today. Well, it's all throughout history, but it's very important today when we're during, this pandemic, where we become dormant or still or what have you. And that's one of the blessings, I continue to say, of our coming together and talking and meeting with each other and learning more. But of course, then to be able to go out. But she really said some things that were very attractive to us and appealing to us as women.
And very much challenging. She would challenge anyone. I remember going to CTU my first year and then coming to take a course at the Institute. And I thought Father David, I thought I knew a little theology. So I was trying to let her know what I knew. And I'll not correct her, but it was a challenge. And boy, after she got through with me, I remember the last words because they still ring in my ears and in my heart. She looked me eyeball to eyeball and says, "Who you gonna believe? Those official theologians, or you gonna believe your mama?"
All right.
I mean, so it was over there. Right. And what she was saying is that we discredit Black intelligentsia, we discredit Black spirituality as if it's second to theologians, and says, no, your lived experience is this theological fodder. It really is. So
I appreciate what you're saying. Now I want to read more about Thea Bowman.
Oh, please do. There's so much. I just scratched the very surface of it. It's so much about her. And there's still yet more to be discovered, I mean, as the years go by. And I pray that her cause moves swiftly. I believe that in many ways, if her cause would have been further along in this moment of time of Black Lives Matter, Thea Bowman, if she was alive, she would have been on the streets of Ferguson. She would have been there in Minneapolis.
Yes.
She always went where she could bring healing and hope. So I think that she is a apostle for racial justice and racial reconciliation. And I think if her cause was a little bit further, this will certainly help move it.
Father Maurice, I just wanted to thank you for your time and for this work that you're doing. It's always a privilege to hear from you because of your close connection, your personal relationship with Sister Thea. So that's really fortunate for the cause, but also for us. And we will, St. Benedict will send I was calculating, so there are about 30 people on the conference this morning, so we will add $1,000 to the cause.
Oh, bless you, bless you.
If each one of the 30 want to cover that expense, that's $30 a person. So something's happening in triplicates, and maybe somebody else will triplicate that offering as well.
Thank you. Yeah, send it to the diocese and let it know it's because of this Zoom meeting, so they know the work that I'm doing.
We will give proper credit. That's our intention.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your witness and all the other wonderful work. I follow everything that you're doing, David, and I want to thank you for still having church and being church in this time of COVID-19. And
yes,
things happen, and that's such a blessing. And it's not only just for the church, but it's for Chicago. It's for everybody. So I love that, and I appreciate all you're doing.